Hey, welcome to the Insurance Buzz. This is your host, Michael Weaver. We have Courtney Weaver with us today, and we have got a special guest, Mr. Matt Sutika. Matt, how are you today, my man?
I am doing good. I am doing this podcast, and then I am heading trick or treating. So I am very happy. I have a 1-year-old boy, and this year we can actually somewhat trick or treat. So I am having a great day actually.
That's amazing.
I have to know what you're dressing up as. As a 1-year-old now, it's like, okay, it's time.
So our son has always been very like 98 percentile of everything. So, and he is the sweetest boy, but he is like Godzilla when it comes to like his toys and everything like that. Just he's so strong. So he's going as Bam Bam.
Yes.
Perfect.
Which we found that like viewers under a certain age don't know what the Flintstones are, and it's very hard to actually to find Flintstone costumes. I mean, there hasn't been a digital remake or something of the Flintstones, I guess. But so I will be Barney, and my wife will be Wilma, which we had to reorder costumes because in maybe our forgetfulness, we actually thought it was going to be Fred and no, sorry, I even got it wrong. It's Barney and Betty. Wilma and Fred is Pebbles.
Yep.
So,
I had them all mixed up too.
Yes.
I was like, wait, okay.
Yes. So,
Okay.
so I'll be Barney, which is Fred's friend, and Betty, which is the wife, Bam Bam. So that's what we're going to be. I did see already the costume because my wife is at like a mommy and me type of class earlier. So they're looking really good. This will be replaced with some type of like moo looking brown ordeal from the Flintstone era, of course. And then we have our golf cart that we decked out to make it look like one of the like Flintstone vehicles. So we'll be cruising around. And the best part about a 1-year-old who doesn't eat candy is that all the candy gets to go to Dad this year, which is it's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, I love it. They don't know it yet, so you're just going in like, all right, it's time. Thank you so much for the
Yes.
treats.
Thank you for the candy for Dad. My son appreciates it, and I'll be having a good day. Potentially, I'll be a little sick tomorrow from eating all the candy tonight, but it should be good.
Here we go.
Hashtag worth it. He's here for the cuteness. I'm here for the candy. Let's roll. But no, man. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. So we like to always start off with, because you've got years of experience in the insurance industry. So who was Matt before insurance? All right, let's start there.
So that's actually an interesting question. And when we were talking a little bit on the preview, I was like, how am I going to answer this? Because I always start off my intro as I've been in insurance since diapers, because my dad owned a State Farm, and his brothers owned a State Farm, and there's one sister they had worked for one of them at a State Farm. So I've been around insurance forever. So I guess what I'll answer is before insurance, I think I was an entrepreneur, and then who happened to get in insurance, and that's kind of how I would describe myself today as an entrepreneur first, and who happens to do a lot within the insurance and now real estate space. But really, I've never had it before insurance. It's in the blood. It's been, I've been doing Life App since 12. Like I've just been in it. So I hate that I don't have a life before it, but it really, has been my life ever since. It's been really good to my family growing up, and been really good to me and my family now. And I do have things outside of it. So if the question was like, do you, I of course don't just sit around with my PNC, magazines, and that's all I do. It's always been part of my life, I guess.
No, absolutely. So insurance since the womb. All right, that's a great start. Okay, you've been into it for a long time. So,
yes.
But some people that are born into insurance, like yourself, they don't pursue insurance. So, what intrigued you to follow the same footsteps and go into the insurance and financial services industry?
Yeah, so you're correct on that. Getting into college, I didn't think I would ever go into insurance. So I was a finance and accounting double major at Michigan State, and really the only reason I picked those is I didn't really know what I wanted to do. In my mind I was like, I'm not going to do insurance. That's what my dad did. I'm going to do something else, but I don't really know what I wanted to do. So at the time, those degrees were like the highest degrees you could do in the business school, right? so I was really good at, copying off other people's tests is really what it was. It's not like was a genius or anything. I was just very efficient in college. I'll put it that way. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was like, hey, if I get the best degree in the business school, I'll get some type of job opportunity, right? Like, that's really where I was. And as I started getting into the interview process, I realized that, one, accounting was not for me, right? I could pass the test, but like me, that was not my mindset. And then finance, it was a lot of numbers, which I liked from an entrepreneurial standpoint, but like I was, again, not gonna, go help, put an IPO together or, do something like that. So really, I should have probably picked marketing. Would probably actually fit my personality more. And so when I was looking for jobs in the finance realm, I got a late offer from State Farm, out of Colorado to come be a supervisor in their finance department. And since I really didn't know what I would do and I couldn't pick a realm, I was like, hey, at least it's Colorado. I at least know State Farm's going to be there. And this was 2008, so it was like or 2008 or 2009, so it was a bad time to be coming out of school and like even getting a job. So I kind of picked it as the security, and really that was why I got into that, was the space. So I got into State Farm, not because I really wanted to do insurance or that I really wanted to do finance, just more, I needed a job. I was coming out of school. That's what my degree was. And it felt like the most secure thing. And going into that job about a week in, what I realized first of why, maybe wanted to get into the insurance space or the agency space, if you will, was when I started learning that I only had 2 weeks off a year, and I had to get everything approved. I really didn't get to make any decisions. Even though I was a supervisor, I wasn't really, able to do. Everything was very corporate. It was very 9 to 5. And I remember talking to my dad, and he's like, well, it's because you grew up around me, and seeing kind of that lifestyle. So it wasn't very long before I was moving from that opportunity over to the agency side. And really the realization was that I was meant for the entrepreneur world, and definitely I fall into I'll go work 90 hours a week so I don't have to work 40. And, I realized that pretty soon, and then agency was the best thing because I had the connections within the space. I knew it. And, by that time I was leaning a little bit more towards, hey, maybe doing what my dad did isn't such a bad idea. After all, but I got that at least learning curve and kind of got to get out there a little bit and see what else was out there.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So then you went from, so obviously you went from the captive world to the independent world, and now the world you're in now. So so I'd like to know, because I'm sure you learned different things along the way that has helped you get to where you're at today.
And not only that, in the captive space, when we were talking before, I mean, you're number 1 or 2 in the company year over year. So to make that transition of having a ton of success in this space, what did you learn in that you applied, just kind of piggybacking off of Michael, because I think that was probably a big jump too, to go, okay, here I am, now I'm going to transition to here, and I'm going to transition to here. So yeah, I want to hear all of it.
Yeah, so we were fortunate. It was, of course, I'll say all the nice things, but it was our team and all that stuff. But we were very fortunate to do well at State Farm. We had a good office. We were putting up good numbers, and the one thing I wasn't good at, full disclosure, is, and if you've been in a captive, sometimes you fall into this. So I always like to bring it up because it's not always sunshines and rainbows. Is that from a production standpoint, or what this particular captive in State Farm set as the metrics of success, right? We're very like app count based, right? Or if you were going to hit a travel trip, and there's not a lot of conversation about profit and loss and a P&L and things like that. And as a 20 or 2-year-old starting a business, I only knew how to do one thing, and that was go hit these targets. I wanted to be top in everything. So I figured out a way how to get there, but what I didn't concentrate on is the money to get there, over hiring, maybe being overstaffed, being in debt. Like, none of that scared me. Like some people are scared off from debt. I wasn't, because I was so fixated on, being this, top new agent, and then maybe a President's Club agent. And so that was I had to kind of go through that, and really it became kind of my grad school or at my MBA in the insurance space was my State Farm opportunity. And I really don't ever have a bad word about State Farm or the people that are still there, and have still a lot of good friends. It's just I kind of outgrew the opportunity, or really I knew I was going to eventually outgrow. And what I was seeing is that, one, a lot of limitations on what I actually could do as an entrepreneur, decisions that I could make. I really couldn't do much with branding. A fun example is that I realized that, as much as I love State Farm, the more I branded State Farm, the more I was helping every other agent in my area. So I started just branding everything the Matt Sutika agency, and I started treating State Farm as an independent carrier, almost like, but they were my only one, right? So it was like, yeah, welcome to, hey, I'm going to write you through State Farm. Like that was kind of the pitch. Well, of course, State Farm didn't love that, and I don't blame them, right? There's not one thing that State Farm ever came to me, hand on the Bible, that I wouldn't do the same thing if I was running State Farm, right? Like, again, I always say it was me, not them, right? The whole breakup thing, right? And it was true. And so what I saw is that I was very interested in technology. I was very interested in potentially doing a bunch of other things in life. So I didn't know that if, in 10 years or 15 years, maybe I want to be just an insurance broker anymore. Maybe I want to do something else and not being able to sell my book or transition. So it was a lot more of this fact that I was in my 20s, and I knew that what had been successful for my dad, hang your shingle and, stay in for 40 years and get this pension, wasn't the same opportunity I had, right? And, State Farm was the main company throughout those years. It was a lot easier. The competition, ever since Geico and Progressive really, got in there, is crazy, right? And so I was like, there might be less agents, there might be all kinds of stuff, and I need to control my own. So that was my first thoughts on how to, why I wanted to get away from the captive world to the independent. And then, fortunately, I was good at networking, and I was able to meet a few guys in Chicago that own the largest operation of Century 21 franchises in the country. And they were looking to have their own independent agents. So, I had opportunity. So I was like, all right, as crazy it is to walk away from this, opportunity I have at State Farm, I know that if I don't now, I'm just a few years away from the golden handcuffs, and then I won't be able to walk away, which is a lot of people's problem. Where also I didn't have the wife and kids. I still say this every single time. If I was married and had a couple kids, or even maybe married, I might still be a State Farm agent today, because I wouldn't have been able to take the risk, because I walked away with nothing, right? Like, I walked away with more people upset with me and more like things I ended up having to pay for, and like that type of stuff, than I did like, here's some $1 million check, go do your next opportunity. So for 99% of the people in my world at that point, they thought I was crazy, they thought I was nuts. They're like, why would you do this? Including State Farm, right? Like, they're like, wait, what? Why are you moving on? So that's really the transition, and it was just, seeing the writing on the wall for me that, there was going to be this insuretech, and Lemonade and Hippo weren't around yet, right? They hadn't really came out at this point. But I knew that there was going to be a way to digitalize this. I wanted to be able to own my book, so one day when I did have a wife and kids, if something way I got hit by a bus, I got a little bit more than like $100K for my book of business, like we could sell it. And then if I wanted to do other things within the space, I had that flexibility to sell my book or just continue to run that business while I do another business, which is, look at Elon Musk, right? He's got like 17 companies in the Fortune 500 now, or whatever he has, like, and he shows that, you can do more than just one thing and still do a good job at all of them. So that was kind of the reasons why, and kind of how it worked out.
No, I love that, man, and obviously we can relate, and it's I think that's the unique thing, is like every opportunity is a great opportunity, but you just got to find the right opportunity that's great for you, and it sounds like that's what you really worked on. So when you went to the independent channel, and now obviously you're in the channel you're in now, what have you learned over the years that you're like, and just to be successful in the insurance industry, you got to do this and this?
Number one, it's hard work mixed with being a little crazy, I think, is what I see. The most successful people is that you got to remember that our industry has been around for so long, And it's so easy to do it the same way and continue to do it the same way. And there's people that will continue to do the same way and still have success for a little bit. And anybody in our industry, right? Like, there's other industries out there that, new ideas are just accepted. In ours, I still remember in my very first job when I brought up the idea of dual monitors, right? I was crazy, right? Dual monitors was a crazy idea for my State Farm supervisor position so that, these individuals didn't have to print out 1,700 pieces of paper and look at the piece of paper and then type into a screen. It was a crazy idea, right? But just to kind of show you, that was 2010 or whatever it was, 2009, so not that far ago, where our industry was, right? Like dual monitors were a big deal. And so I think that's what I've seen in the insurance space in general is, we still have so much ceiling to go of where people are today and what's out there. And if you are a little nuts, just know that, that's okay. That's actually probably a good idea, right? You're not going to maybe get the support. I remember the first time I brought up the idea of insuretech to the IA community, and we can still go read those posts and the very terrible messages I got on Facebook and all social media platforms about how bad of an idea that was. And then now majority of brokers in the country have a tech, tech carrier as a partner, right? So, and that was just 2017. So that's even closer. So, overall, I think within the industry, if you're willing to go for it, and then you got to put the hard work with it. Like it's just, we're in an industry that's not rocket science either, right? Which is great, right? For people like me who, again, I was telling you I was cheating in college and, copying off tests to get through and all this stuff, right?
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
I'm right,
sure.
right? That's what I love about my insurance industry is that like I don't have to be a rocket scientist. I can outwork you, right? Like I can, that was always my thing at my State Farm or anywhere I've been. It's like, you know what? Like you might have a better idea, you might be smarter than me, but like you'll never outwork me. Like, like I can always get stuff done. And that's what I've loved about the insurance space is that really it is an industry that hard work can pay off, and not hard work like manual labor, but just like are you willing to be up at 4 a.m. and work till midnight and do these things? Able to work on the weekends when others won't. And thankfully, I had youth on my side for a lot of my chapters so far. That's helped me a little bit. Also, there's this thing called Red Bull that's been, I'm not sponsored by Red Bull, but if Red Bull's listening and wants to sponsor us or the channel, they let us know. But yeah, I had Red Bull, right? Red Bull.
I thought I saw some wings popping out back
Yeah,
there.
they're
I don't know.
Red Bull was a thing. Now I'm in my 30s now, and I can't do the Red Bull anymore because now with my kid, I have to. My wife wants me to live a long time, or at least that's what she tells everybody, that she wants me to live a long time. So I gotta do it with a little bit more sleep and a little bit more cold water now. But the premise stays the same: is just hard work will get you there.
Yeah. So you have always been ahead of the curve, it sounds like. So I want to hear where you see our industry going as a whole and just some market trends.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the first trend you saw in like the insuretech, 1.0 space is there was kind of like a fight between the IA broker and this direct-to-consumer insuretech, right? And, insuretech 2.0 was like, hey, we're going to be friends, but, we're going to start to let you have some contracts. And this is speaking on the IA space. But, we're still not, all the way in. We're going to let you go because maybe that'll help us on the insuretech space. And then the IA channel is like, hey, we'll get these contracts because, maybe it'll help us write a few more. But, I still didn't see either side totally, the insuretechs committing to the IA space. And I didn't see the IA space, totally like getting rid of their travelers contracts, right? So I really think the next step is going to be, one of two things. I think that we're at a spot where either you are going to start to see where different IAs are giving up those contracts, and starting to say, hey, you know what? We just went through, the Rona situation there in 2020. And everyone's working from home. This digital transformation is here. And, I think that I'm going to concentrate on the overhead and technology within my space. And I'm going to go with a Hippo and a Lemonade and an Openly and a Clear Cover as my carriers, and I'm going to provide that technology because I know I need to see that. I think that you're going to see a lot of that happening in the space. And then I think the other thing is I think you're going to see, because a lot of our 1.0 insuretechs have either not done as well in the IPO market, or struggle a little bit, still trying to get profitability. I can see a lot of the insuretechs potentially either partnering or getting bought out in the next, 5-10 years here, where, we'll use State Farm as an example, and we'll use my company, right? So State Farm, if you're listening, throw your offers our way. I'm kidding. But, State Farm said, hey, you know what? I can't really compete in all these like side business policies, right? Like I gotta concentrate on my home and auto business because I'm getting attacked by the insuretechs, I'm getting attacked by travelers. Progressive and Geico have not stopped advertising either, right? The original insuretechs, right? They were probably the insuretechs 0.5, right? In our space. So they might say like, hey, this rental dwelling, right, which fits like Obie's category, just to give you an example, and we can't really put our money in the tech there. We can't really, go. But there's a company like Obie out there that, knows how to do that space, has the partnerships in the space, things like that. But we have this great paper, right? Like that's what, State Farm has. Let's do a merger or, a partnership, or acquire, right? An Obie type company and have them be our rental dwelling arm, right? Or you'll get some that, might say, we're not going to partner or acquire, but we're going to let our agents have a contract with Obie or a contract with, I don't know, Next Insurance or whatever for like, business insurance or stuff like that. You saw this in Florida years ago when the carriers pulled out of Florida, right? And the State Farm agents, through that process, they actually got the ability to go get some independent contracts to kind of just help them get through and write business. And they had different procedures in place where it had to be declined by State Farm and then they could go to the market or whatever. So I could see a lot of that happening where, farmers, calls us up, and I'm just keep using us as an example so people can understand, because we are not like in the home auto space, which is where a lot of these carriers are just not gonna, they're not gonna wave the white flag there, right? But with Next and us or Pi on the workers' comp, things like that are kind of that business or an ethos on the life insurance side, they're going to be able to partner and say, hey, you know what? We're going to let our agents have an Obie contract for rental dwellings. They can't write anything else. Obie doesn't write it anyways. Or we're going to let them have a Next Insurance to do all small BOPs and business policies, And so that's kind of the three things that I see is one, I think independent agents adjusting from the standard carriers to the insuretechs in a little bit more rapid pace, especially as their producer portals and everything get better and better and better, right? Most of their producer portals are only a few years old. I see acquisitions happening, and then I see partnerships and allowing agent forces, similar, nationwide flip from, captive nationwide to they're only doing independent nationwide agencies. So I think that's the trend that you're going to continue to see. And, for us in particular, that's why we kind of tried to be more of a drop box and be friendly with everybody compared to trying to be competition.
Yeah, and that's something, I'm glad you bring that up, because I think in our industry, there's almost the stigma that we all can't play in the same sandbox. Like I don't know if you feel like that. So I love hearing that you've really worked on partnerships within our industry.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Technology is not going to slow down, but here's the thing, and I believe agents are set up really, really well for the future, because if you look at what the consumer wants, yes, the consumer may want to handle things more by themselves. They may want things maybe more specified with a certain company to make it easier, but they still want that go-to person. And so how can either companies set their agents up, or how can agents set themselves up for success by being able to partner with a company that may be able to better offer a better solution to a problem, with still having that human, that professional to turn to when they need them the most.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's my first point, is that, there's always been this hybrid space, right? that I love to make up stats, but it's 80% of all businesses through like an agent or a broker, right? Give or take a percent. And so you're exactly right. There's this hybrid area that basically says, all right, direct to consumer is really cost, it's a lot of cost to that, and it really doesn't help you from a standpoint where the 1.0's got it wrong, which is your claims side of things, right? There's a high correlation of Google to higher claims, and your loss ratio and stuff, right? You have these brokers who do spend the time and have the relationships and know, and where they're struggling is they're trying to still sell at the kitchen table and do paper apps, right? And so that hybrid space is there to say, hey, I'll use us on the insuretech side. I'd rather go through you as the broker. You already have the client, and the only paradigm shift that needs to happen is you getting your client to write an Obie policy instead of a State Farm policy or a Travelers RDP. And then I only pay you, right? Which is the concept I do love about State Farm and some of these things is like they only, their only expense was what they paid out, which was, with premium coming in. So it's a space that just works, right? And in the IA space, there's very few people like myself that get the opportunity to actually go get into these insuretechs, full on. Most people are going to be the 2017 version of myself who are just begging for more technology to help run my brokerage. That's how I got in myself, is that a LinkedIn message to Daniel at Lemonade and a speed dating with Asaf in Chicago, and to try to get contracts. And that's why we were the first ones to get, brokerage contracts before they even had them, right? Like, because I was trying to convince them. I said, what you don't have is these thousands and thousands of Century 21's homes closing that I do. But what I don't have is a fast way to get a homeowner's policy digitally. I think we can work here, right? And it just ended up being there. And then, it's not just me, but that kind of shot out this idea that this side wanted to come a little bit more towards the IA channel. The IA channel was a little bit more open to the idea. But someone, again, we talked about like pioneers. We talked about, you got to have that first crazy idea. Again, now if I post about insuretechs, like you should see the responses, right? If you go back to that 2017 post where I talked about Lemonade, and Lemonade did this thing out on I forget, it's Coverager, right? And it was like titled Lemonade's working with brokers now, and it had my company like on it. The amount of hate mail I got was ridiculous. Now people probably think that's really cool, right? Because and it's amazing how in 3-4 years. So I think that's where it's going to continue to be. And if you're a standard market who can't provide that technology to make your policies easier for that independent broker, these insuretechs are leaning more and more and more towards the IA community. They're doing more for them. They're more nimble, right? And they're going to be the tools that you want to use, because at the end of the day, margins are only getting smaller. It's harder to keep a customer. And, more than anything, is what people always forget how much sales you do. I talked about this with my State Farm. Forget that. Like, that's not impressive. What is your overhead? How many people does it take you to close that policy? And the insuretechs cut that in half, maybe even more, because now you don't need 10 people to write 100 auto a month. You can do it with 5, right? Yep. And then the servicing aspects alone, right? Can your customer get into a portal and adjust their deductible when it's summertime for their convertible and wintertime with their convertible, and you don't have to have anybody actually touch that for you? How much does that save you? So I think people need to look at that piece too, is that we're always concentrated on the new business, but like, what can an insuretech or technology do for your actual thing that makes the broker owner money, which is that, that bottom line, that net profit. So, and I think that's where a lot of people are going to be like, oh, wow, this is really helping me a lot here.
We could both get fired up about this, because I love that you're talking about the money side of things. It doesn't matter, again, if you're in the captive model, you're in the IA model. Shoot, if you're just a business owner, you need to understand your P&L. You need to understand where your money's going, how much money you're making, what your margins are, like what your expense ratios are. Because if you don't pay attention to that, just like you explained in the beginning, well, great, yeah, we're writing lots, but you're not bringing home anything. And I don't know about you, but this is not a not-for-profit. Like, you are doing this for profit. You are a business owner. Like, you have to make sure you are like, you know where your money's going. You just can't throw that shit at the wall and be like, well, we hope we can pay the bills this month. Like, come on, man.
I did do that, full disclosure, for about 10 years. And it was only through that I now am, I'm always
Yeah.
thinking about the dollar, right? Like, and the fortunate and unfortunate thing about the insurance broker space, independent agent space, captive space, is there's so many things that people throw at you, from CRMs to management systems to lead generation tools, how to use a lead, how to get more leads, internet leads, that it's so easy. And I would say majority, and if you think this is about you, it's not, and if it is, or whatever the PC phrase is here. But I think majority of brokers and agents, if they're real with themselves, they spend so much time looking for a silver bullet. If you go out to the IAOA Facebook group, or you go to anything, people are either asking a question trying to get a silver bullet, or they just fall in love with any guy or gal that posts anything on social media or whatever, of like, here's what we do, or here's how I'm doing mortgage leads or whatever. And that can get dangerous for your P&L, because you're just trying everything, you're going everything. The biggest key to success beyond the carriers, forget that, is, in my opinion, is figure out who you want to be as an insurance business. Do you want to be a niche? Do you want to be? And then find the best tools that fits that. If you start with the tools or the leads or whatever, you're just going to be all over the place, and you're going to constantly feel lost. And if you read the comments on social media and everything, more people are in the lost boat than they are in the successful boat. And those posting constantly their wins or whatever is no different than the YouTube guys posting about how they bought Apple at $12. They don't tell you about the losses that they had too. And that
Right.
false reality can be really tough for a lot of brokers out there. I think that's one of my biggest passions when I see the space, is like, I get a little annoyed with that piece that, there's just so many blinking lights and false silver bullets, so I'm always like, just be you, figure out, your, what you can do, what's your niche, and then stick with it, and then build a business plan around that, and then go find the technology or the carriers or the CRMs that fit that, and then you'll be in good shape. If you go the other way around, you're going to be, in a world of hurt, and probably people that are, coming to you all for assistance, right?
Well, it's like, and I always tell people, like, there is, just what you said, there is no silver bullets. There's no secret sauces, man. Like, it's just hard work. Like, the harder you work, the luckier you get, figuring out what your niche is, what your business plan is, and then actually sticking with the plan. Like, oh, great, I just had this good idea. Let's try it for 3 weeks. Oh, I heard another good idea. Let's try it. That is the worst, because that causes confusion, exactly what you're saying. Like, you can't just jump from good idea to good idea to good idea, because they never work, because you don't give them enough time to work. Like, you got to figure out a plan, stick with the plan, like you're saying. So I love that you bring that up.
I want to jump a little bit, because I also graduated college around the same time you did. And it was a very scary time of like getting a job. And you brought up security in like 2008, 2009. And I feel like now we're kind of in the same boat. We're different. We're adults, and we're now like in a different position. So I want to kind of talk about what you're seeing in our industry, how that plays out, what we can do as professionals to really, as an insurance industry, we're built on security. Like, that is what we provide. That's what we seek. That's what we want. So I want to just hear a little bit about your take on 2022, 2023, what that looks like in comparison, and how you feel now versus how you felt then.
I think it's a great question. So the way I'll answer this is, back then, the reason I chose security, and really wanted that avenue, was that was the cards I had, right? I had no experience, I had no money, all these different things like that. Now, for me, just speaking personally, now going to the broader, is I'm in a different place. I'm more in the, I like these bear markets that we're in now, because I am a little bit, more financially secure. I am a little bit better in my business. And so I'll take a time like this. So I'm speaking for those who are in a good spot, right? Or have built a good business. People make the most money through a bear market, right? It's because you grind it out, you work hard, you build the relationships and go. So that's, the 5% or 10% that are listening that are, in a good spot. For the other half that are in a maybe not in a great spot, or could use some help or even like terrified right now, I would say, write down the 5 or 10 things about your business that, from how you're getting leads in, who's your customer base, what's your staff look like, what are you spending, and kind of go through and figure out what is recession proof and what is not. I used to talk about back, when I was in similar shoes to you. I can't write a book because I can't even put probably a paragraph together without my wife spell checking me. But if I would have had help, I would have built a book at my State Farm, because at the time the commissions were like 8% base, and then like you could build up and actually make like 11% on your P&C. And a lot of people built their businesses off that 11%. And I always talked about, I'd have a book called Build It on the 8. And what I mean by that is, what is your core, that for those who don't know, like you got an 8% base, and then based off your financial services, you could get your P&C up to 11%. And so I always was big on, once I figured out P&L, I wasn't always, I said early on I was making mistakes too. So like I've been in your guys' boat. But once I figured it out, it was like, hey, I'm going to build my business on the 8, right? And my expenses, everything like that. And then that 3% variable is just that. If I get it, I'm having a better Christmas, I think for State Farm, it was a better March. For those who are State Farm, you'll laugh at that too. But anyways, long story short, like that's what I would do is get my business down. I would concentrate on things like from a marketing standpoint, how people come to you in insurance is how they will leave you. So if you have too many marketing sources that are really easy to get somebody, those ones are going to be really easy to lose that somebody. So really concentrate on your ones that are really hard to get, right? Because those will be very firm. And my example is, if you're doing Google leads, guess how you're going to lose that person, right? If you're doing something where you're getting a referral from a mortgage broker, or you're taking care of the insurance for an apartment complex or something like that, that takes some time and effort, someone has to leave that apartment complex. Someone has to not want to do business with that mortgage broker or that realtor again, as just some prime examples, to not want to do business with you, right? So you get that double layer of stickiness. So maybe in a tough market like this, this is the time to really make sure your expenses are good. Make sure that you're living off of that core renewal book that you have, not the one that you've been getting for the last few years where you got the cool travelers bonuses and all this stuff. To just like, what's my general amount? And then taking this time to try to flip some of your lead sources into something that's more sustainable, a little bit, more firm, and just really, the question I always ask is, if there was a lead source that you're using, and someone like me who's pretty decent on the phone could steal your client in 10 minutes, drop the lead source, right? Or think about whoever, maybe you're a good salesperson. If you could steal them away, that's not probably, if you're getting that type of people through it, it's probably not a good lead source. If, I use that mortgage example, when I call most people up that have like a good, like they got their insurance from like a mortgage broker who works with insurance, they usually answer like this. They're like, I don't even know. It's through my mortgage, my realtor or whatever. Those are the answers you want, because that's sticky business, right? Because it's a pain in the butt, right? If I call the person who just shopped and what came through as a wizard.com lead or whatever, the quote wizard or whatever, they're used to this fast up. They'll be like, well, what do you got for me? What do you got? Because they're used to it. It's like, they just got 18 quotes. It's like, what's the big deal of a 19th? Oh, I just got $100 at State Farm. Can you do better? Like, that's the answer that they'll probably give me, right? And so those are the things I would concentrate. Very long-winded answer, and I apologize, but that's what I would do now in a bear market. And if you do that, when it hits the bull run, just like I'm a big crypto fan, like you're going to see that 5x, 10x, 100x gains, and if you were in the previous bull market just getting going, and you saw all these other brokers putting it back to the independent space that were buying cars and doing really well, it's because they put the work in the previous bull market back in 2008, 2009, 2010 to get there. This is your chance to hit yours. So when that bull market hits again in 23, 24, 25, whenever it hits, you're gonna be the person that people are calling like lucky, or oh man, you hit it good. It's like they're not gonna remember that you had to go through this to get there, but you will, and it'll make it even sweeter, and you'll be in a chance where you'll be like the people who bought Bitcoin at $100, and aren't looking back. So
That's good.
That's fantastic.
That is I would love to have a episode just on crypto, but this is great, man. I think that's a really good way to conclude this podcast because you just hit on so many amazing things. And so man.
Yeah, I think this is fantastic. Matt, what's the easiest way that people can connect with you? Talk to us a little bit about what you're doing over at Obie.
Absolutely. So exciting news is we just launched and put out our first message that we're going into the independent agent space, i.e. people can have a contract with Obie if you're an independent broker. So if you are interested in that, go ahead and just email me directly right now. We're going to eventually have forms and other things like that, but it literally announced a week ago. So the easiest way is to email me, which is Matthew with 2 T's at obierisk.com. And Obie is, you can see on the shirt here, then with RISK after it.com. And then if you're looking for a partnership, you can go to our site, obierisk.com/partnerships. If you're looking at wanting to, you are in the prop tech space or you're in the real estate space and you're wanting to find an embedded or faster solution to get your either clients or yourself faster rental dwelling insurance. And I didn't even mention that Obie is a 1 to 4 unit insuretech for the rental space. So 50 states, 1 to 4 units. You can go direct through our website and get a quote, or you can come through us. We have kind of the both standpoint, and really we spend most of our time partnering with partnerships. And actually, what I'm most excited about, as you guys can tell from this call, is getting into the IA space, because we think that that's going to be our best horse going forward.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. And I'll drop all of those websites and links in the show notes as well, so you guys can just click down below and grab everything as well.
Yeah, so Matt, thank you so much again for your time, man. I mean, one of the biggest takeaways I just took away is like how a customer comes to you is how they're going to leave you. So I think that's spot on. And I think everyone listening to this, that should definitely be a question you ask yourself right now. Like, how am I attracting businesses, and is that the business that I can build a book of business on? So Matt, thank you again for your time. Everyone listening, as you all know, time is the most valuable and important asset that we all have. We appreciate you spending time with us today. Matt, thank you again, my man.
Thank you for having me.
All right, go out and make it great, my friends.